Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about 5 reasons to retire as soon as possible.
Let's jump right in. The first reason is going to be that your best and healthiest years are in your 50s and 60s. And do you really want to spend those working a job that you maybe don't like when you could be doing everything you've ever wanted to do?
Yeah, your 50s and 60s is where you're kind of at your prime, you mentally and physically, and just what you have learned throughout life. It's really the perfect time to enjoy what you have earned throughout life. Why spend those premium years working away when you don't have to?
Yeah, I know that when we first started doing this, we were actually 45-ish, 6 years ago. And even from then to now, there's things that we did then to now that would be a little more challenging. And I know that 6 years from now, it would be even more challenging to do some of the things we did, do some of the hikes, some of the grueling train rides we took across the world, basically going around the world by trains and cruises. And it was taxing back then even.
Absolutely. It was, I remember standing on top of a mountain that we had climbed in Norway and thinking, whew, that was quite a trip up here. And now I think back, and sometimes we go back and watch the video of that hike, and I was like, oh, I remember how tired we were when we got to the top of that. That was a really hard climb. I'm not sure we could do that right now. Yeah. We just had this conversation recently, and I think that's just such a golden piece of information that those are really some premium years that you're giving up sitting at a desk.
The next reason is that you likely have more than you already need for your retirement. And when you combine your Social Security, your savings, your stock market, your everything that's out there, and you look at the cost of living across the world, maybe you don't have enough to live the lifestyle you're currently living, but in retirement, you don't have to maintain that same cost of lifestyle. In fact, you're free to move wherever you want because you're not tied to a job. That's another missing piece, is that when you retire, you don't have to stay where you work. You can go somewhere that's cheaper. You can go somewhere that's better. And for us, I know we were working in Atlanta and we were spending $8,000 a month to live there. Now we're traveling the world. Our lifestyle has actually gone up, I would say. We're doing more things that are nicer and better, and we're only spending $4,000 a month to do it. So when we were sitting in Atlanta thinking, well, to live here and to do this, we're going to need X amount of dollars, that was the wrong calculation because we ended up not staying in Atlanta. So had we tried to get enough money to stay in Atlanta for the rest of our life, we would have been saving way too much money and worked way too many years to make that possible.
Yeah, and it gives you the key, one of the 2 keys. You're looking for financial independence and location independence, and if you can get one of the 2, the other one you can still continue to do. Like, you could still earn money if you're independent of the location you're currently in, and you can be anywhere, you can still make money. You just have to be able to get at least one of those 2 and then work towards the other one, and then before you know it, you've got both.
Next reason to retire is that it is way better for your health, from a level of stress standpoint. And we do hear this from a lot of people that as soon as they retired, their stress went down, they got healthier, they got happier. A lot of people said their doctor told them, you have to retire. I'm telling you, retire in the next 2 years. And it was the best thing they ever did. There are very few people who we've ever talked to who have said, I retired and I wished I would have stayed another 5 years. Don't think I've actually ever heard that.
No, have never heard that from somebody, because it really does make such an enormous difference, just emotionally, physically. Stress can take lots of different forms on your body, and sometimes it turns into something physical too. And so when you don't have that stress of your work and maintaining all of the things that you have, it really just opens up a lot for you.
Yeah, and it really comes down to you're working these last 10 years not to have a secure retirement, to be in the 1%. That's what you're working towards in the world, because you've already likely got enough to retire. Now, you may be in the middle of the pack, but are you really willing to trade the best years just to go from top 10% to top 1%? Because 88% of the world, couples, live on less than $2,400 a month in the entire world. So if you're going to retire and you could have more than $2,400 a month, you're already in the top 12% of the world. So it's easily able to be done. The question is, do you want to go from the top 12% to the top 1%? That's taking your retirement from $2,400 a month up to $10,000 a month. But you're going to have to put in an extra 10, 15 years of work to do that. And, you know, at the end of the day, for most people, that's just not worth it.
Yeah, and really, who are you listening to for the numbers, too, on when you decide? You have to figure out what works for you and for what you're looking for and what your lifestyle is going to be, or what you're planning for it to be, or what you hope for it to be. If you're looking at your financial advisor to give you all of that information, look, you can take the information, but you want to be able to translate it into what works for you personally. They're giving you information that's usually going to be more for, you know, a mass of people, but you have to figure out what's going to work really well for you personally. So take it with kind of a grain of salt, and then translate that, because you may not need, like you said, as much as you think in order to take that first initial step out the door.
You also never know what is going to happen, not only in your life or in the world. And as we all know, things can happen in the world now, so go do the things you want to do. You got one shot at this. What are you waiting for? You're going to wait until, you know, you're 65, 75, 85, and then hope that you can still do everything you ever wanted to do. It's not a great idea, because there's a pretty good chance some of the things are going to get taken away from you. What we're seeing is, you know, in the travel world, there's places we went years ago that you can't go now. There's things that you could have done earlier that you now can't do. And when we started doing this, we started traveling full-time 2018, 2019, and we're pretty glad we did, because we took 6 months in 2019, actually June to December of 2019, went everywhere we ever wanted to go in our life. Like every bucket list item, that was the bucket list 6 months. And then just a couple of months later, most of those places were closed. And we wouldn't have been able to do it had we waited even just a few more months.
Yeah, it's just, you just don't know. It's so, you just can't stress that enough. You don't know what's going to happen. There are so many things that can occur, you know, physically, mentally, not just to you, but maybe to, you know, someone close to you, or, you know, to your spouse, to your family, to you. It's just enjoy the time that you do have while you have it, because you don't know what is coming, and it's impossible to predict.
Now let's talk about, if you do retire early, everybody's fear is, well, I'm going to run out of money. That's really the only reason that you would not retire early, unless you just absolutely love your job. But there's not a ton of people in that situation. So really the only reason you would keep working longer than you want to is fear of running out of money. Now, 40, 50 years ago, this was a much more rational fear, because 40, 50 years ago, if you got to be 65 and you ran out of money, there was really not much you could do to fix that problem. But today, there's never been an easier time in the world to gear down your spending, gear down your retirement. Most of us Americans do not have an earning or a savings problem. We have a spending problem. We spend way too much money. That's the bottom line. Most of us could have retired 10 years before we wanted to if we just spent less money. We see people all the time, happy people, living retirements in Thailand on $1,000 a month. We met a bunch of people from Australia the last time we were there. They were living on $1,000 a month, retired, happy as could be, owned condos there.
On the beach.
On the beach. And it was $1,000 a month they were spending. And it's just kind of like, yeah, you can do that. So the problem is not to be fearful. The other thing you can do is you could always make more money later, which was nothing, something you couldn't do 30, 40 years ago. Once you quit your job, you were kind of out. Now, not exactly the case anymore. So there's not as much of a reason to be fearful because there's so many things you can do to alleviate costs. You can do house sitting, which is free. We've got a video on the channel here about retiring to a hotel, how inexpensive that can be. So there's just not a reason to be as fearful as people were a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking a gap 10 years between 50 and 60 if you want to, because there will still be job opportunities when you come back. You're not going to be, earning top dollar as an executive in a company maybe like you were before, but there are still going to be plenty of opportunities later on. If you decide you want to come back and live in the US, there's still a ton of opportunities. There will be a lot of opportunities. Take those prime years and do the best that you can with them.
Yeah, between internet, country openings, low-cost travel, opportunities to earn money overseas, it's a completely different world that we're operating now in, and we're seeing people out there taking advantage of that, and they're not regretting it. We have not yet met a single person that has regretted what they've done. I'm sure there are some out there, maybe that have. Haven't met them though, and we have met a lot of retirees in our travels.
We do. We run into them a lot in the scenarios that we're in. Guys, really hope that this is helpful to you in your thought process as you're thinking about retiring. It really is worth doing it as soon as possible. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you have questions, leave those down in the comments, and we will see you next time.